Under the same moon, we share the love, embracing the differences like hand in glove. Spreading peace and joy, it's a beautiful sight. Together we shine in each other's light. And now do we stand in love's pure might, watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.
What if the next major conflict didn't start overseas, but right here in America's doorstep? What would you think about that? Today, the FBI is warning that Iran may be seeking ways to strike the U.S. West Coast, right? Namely California, raising serious national security questions. At the same time, tensions in the Middle East are exploding as Hezbollah has launched hundreds of rockets toward Israel. Israel is taking a beating, and the mainstream media does not really want to tell you that. And today, we're also going to take a look at Iran's new supreme leader, and he's actually speaking out. All of that and more we will get to today. Meanwhile, the Epstein files, the saga, is back in the spotlight as investigators reopen a part of his case. In fact, they're actually trying to perhaps get some people locked up. We're going to get to all of these revelations, including how millions of people around the world are watching intently to see if we somehow engage in World War III. All of that and more. Thank you guys for tuning in today. But first off, we're going to start off with this threat that's to the West Coast. And I see we already have some amazing people here. Please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. I see we have Stella. We have that girl, Henny. Welcome in. Nice to see you. We also have James and Portia. Thank you, guys. You're far too kind for all the support. Let's get to it. Let's see what's happening.
This morning, a warning about how Iran might want to retaliate against the United States. The FBI recently alerted California police departments Iran aspires to conduct a surprise attack against unspecified targets in California using drones. The alert, reviewed by ABC News, says the drones would come from an unidentified vessel.
So we have to take this seriously. Last night I really broke it down, but when you think about it, the FBI had told the local authorities that basically Iran was looking to hit the California coast by means of these very destructive drones, and they pretty much plan on doing it from a boat. But actually, in this day and time, they could probably use, we've seen throughout the world, people have used just regular drones you can buy and figured out a way to come up with some sort of contraption to take out the lives of Americans. Imagine if something like that happened, we would be in total chaos.
Off the coast of the United States homeland.
This is extremely alarming. We know that...
Oh my, Portia is in California. Who else is in California? I would be quite concerned. I just came back from out there.
Iran's approach to combating the United States and Israel is through asymmetric warfare. They cannot take us on militarily.
The alert is cautionary. There is no information about Iran's aspirational timing or targets. The FBI declined to comment. Overnight, President Trump responded to the report.
It's being investigated, but you have a lot of things happening.
So, guys, M. Wallen was out on the East Coast and relocated to California, but having second thoughts because this is a very serious matter. I told you guys I'm headed out to California to do a documentary on Skid Row, so I may have to keep this story in mind.
Earlier, he said he's unconcerned about an Iranian strike on the United States.
Are you concerned about a domestic terrorist attack by Iran, sir? No.
California Governor Gavin Newsom said he was aware of the alert about Iran's desires, and his administration is working to protect California communities.
Drone issues have been always top of mind.
Now, law enforcement officials say there are no imminent threats. And after 13 days of U.S. and Israeli bombardment, law enforcement sources tell us it's...
I'm not sure what Newscomb can do because Nicki Minaj is giving him a hard time and he could barely keep up with her. So can he handle a strike? We'll have to figure that one out.
It's unlikely Iran possesses the capability to successfully launch such an attack. Police sources in Los Angeles say security is going to be even tighter at events like the Oscars. But, Michael, for those kinds of events, security is always tight.
Yeah.
Okay. That girl Henny says, I know that there are military bases in California, but they said yesterday it was an unidentified vessel. Thank you for that information.
But Aaron, you're learning some new details about the suspects in the attack outside the New York mayor's residence.
Yeah, the two teens who were charged with bringing homemade bombs to dueling protests outside the mayor's residence.
I was actually in New York when they had this whole bomb activity, and these guys had pretty much made a makeshift bomb. So I have to be careful when I'm covering these stories because things are definitely terrible right now.
Considered other targets. Law enforcement sources told ABC News investigators found a notebook at a storage unit in Pennsylvania in which the teens wrote about potential soft targets like shopping malls before they ultimately drove into Manhattan Saturday with IEDs. And the sources say they had been planning some kind of an attack for at least a week.
Well, we're glad it never went through. All right. Thank
Okay, guys, so let's stay alert. And in fact, if you see or hear something, be sure to let us know here at Watching the World. My email is always available to you. A lot of our tips come in. I really do appreciate it. You know, guys, we have this big issue in the country right now because it all really started with Doge, right? We had issues before, but Doge came in with Elon Musk, right? He was leading the way, and they were supposed to save money. So a lot of people are really looking to save money for the United States, right? All of us do, right? We want to see our country succeed, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. That should be our viewpoint. But we have a new disturbing story about Pete Hegseth and the spending of money, and that goes contrary to what we learned about Doge and how they were trying to bring down those numbers. In fact, let's take a look and see what's happening.
The Pentagon Under Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth went on a September spending spree, hitting a record $93 billion in 2025, the highest ever for grants and contracts in a single month. The use it or lose it spending happens annually as defense officials rush to exhaust their budgets before the fiscal year ends. In just the last 5 days of September, $50 billion.
My heavens, what on earth are they spending $22 million on steaks? That's a lot of steaks. Who's consuming all of that steak? $93 billion. That's a lot of money in a time where money is definitely being discussed on a higher level as far as cutting corners so that America's debt can be reduced. So we're not relying on other countries that we are indebted to, right? So we see some kind of contradiction here.
Dollars was spent, more than the annual defense budgets of most countries. Purchases included $225 million on furniture, $2 million on king crab, nearly $7 million on lobster.
King crabs. Who is buying all this king crabs? What is happening with Pete Hegseth? The American people want to know.
Tail and $15 million on ribeye steak. The Pentagon also spent nearly...
Oh my, they even like $15 million on ribeye. What's happening?
$6 billion on IT systems. That included $3.5 billion for tech support and cable TV. Luxury music instruments.
Well, you have to have cable TV, but they're dropping millions on it, all while saying it's the other party that's causing the issue. I think everybody needs to come together and really figure this whole thing out. Portia says, I'm in San Francisco and we have bridges. Okay, think about that. Often bridges and high rises are always the target. So it's quite scary when you look at it. Now we're going to see a weird phenomenon that happened here in the United States. It's probably going to make you wonder, like, what's really happening. Allegedly, someone stole some drones from a military base. Let's see what this is all about.
A reward is being offered for information in a drone theft case at Fort Campbell. The Department of the Army Criminal Investigation Division is
already smelling like an inside job. How do you even get into an army base, let alone take a drone?
Offering up to $5,000 for information. Investigators say 4 drone systems were stolen from a building on post. The drones were last seen the morning of November 21st. Authorities say they were taken sometime between November 21st and 20th.
Now, I don't want to take away from this story, but here's a good example of what I'm talking about. Someone is taking some drones, right? And we've been covering Nancy Guthrie's case out of Tucson, Arizona. In fact, I was out there over a week, just came back, right? You see a car in this particular case. You see how easy they have a alleged vehicle involved in this. And still with Nancy Guthrie, we don't have a vehicle. Why is that the case, right? Did the person walk up? But I constantly remind everyone that usually the feds, the first thing they put out, if they don't have the description of the individual, they give you a vehicle, right? So this is so confusing, but this case gives you a prime example.
24th. Anyone with information is asked to contact the Army CID Fort Campbell Resident Agency. Anonymous tips can also be submitted online.
So in that case, they have potential photos of the culprits and vehicles, right? But Nancy Guthrie, nothing at all. Something does not add up with this case. I don't know what it is. So now, guys, we're going to switch gears a little bit. Thank you for all the comments. I'd like to ask that you hit the like button, share, and subscribe. And also turn on your notifications so you know when we go live. Today, we're honored to have a special guest in the audience. She goes by the name of That Girl Henny. I'd like to ask that you guys make sure you go support her channel. If you think I break things down, she breaks down these cases at a higher level. And let me explain. When she covers the same court cases that I cover, like Sean Diddy Combs, who actually has a case that's going back to court. So we're going to be covering his case, his appeal. But in the case of That Girl Henny, she pulls out the transcripts and she does the deep dives with all of the documentation to support the facts that she presents. So I'm telling you, you're going to really like her material. So she's right there in the channel. I'm going to have the moderators just post her channel so everybody can know where to find her. She's definitely on top of her game. But now we're going to take a look at Epstein files. Epstein is back at it. A lot of people are saying that this is Epstein's war, and they're saying Trumpstein files. We haven't seen any solid proof of that. I'm just telling you what people are saying out there. But let's take a look at what's happening in regards to Epstein. A lot of questions are developed around the time he passed away. In fact, I had posted on the community page that when Epstein died, I believe it was August the 10th, the feds actually posted his death a day earlier. At least the documentation says he died on the 9th. Like, how could that be if the man deceased on the 10th? So all of that and more we're going to get into, but we're going to look at this deep dive in regards to Epstein.
Investigate a suspicious inmate death. They look at 1, if the inmate took his life, or 2, the possibility that somebody killed him. If an inmate's alone until they're found hanging, that means suicide. No one else was there to do it. The jail records video, though, in the area facing Epstein's cell, in the cell area, they had 2 jail cameras, both failed to record, so there was only 1 working camera near the cell. That drew headlines at the time. Government defenders, though, cited the remaining camera footage to conclude that they would say no one got near the cell anyway that night. A top Trump FBI official who rose by questioning the Epstein story even echoed that view on Trump's behalf last year.
You're going to see there's no one there but him. There is nothing. If you have it, I'm happy to see it. There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
Clear as day, a video showing that could resolve any questions, but the Trump official was wrong. Back with our Epstein death special report. We've been tracking all of the errors in the Trump DOJ's original handling of the case. And then the following administration probed those failures, but ultimately issued the same finding of suicide in a watchdog report. from the Garland DOJ in 2023. That 100-page report reviewed the available video cameras footage to conclude the last time.
Wow. So when you look at this from a higher level, you start to realize that some things are quite questionable. I like to ask, I like all the expressions in the comments, but please do not just bog down the chat by spamming. Please just be modest and try to give other people a chance to express themselves.
Anyone came near Epstein's cell was a corrections officer at 10:41 p.m. That's the government conclusion from a detailed probe and report across 2 administrations. That's where the U.S. government would have its stay. But this new law famously forced out the secret internal documents from the same probe, showing other views within the FBI about the last person near Epstein's cell, hidden from the public until now. DOJ said.
So did you notice that? It was hidden from the public until now. Let's see what this is all about. And thank you, James. James says, what happened to all the money they found? I'll wait. Great question, James. Nice to have you here today.
The officer was the last time anyone entered the area. But the Epstein files have revealed a secret FBI log of the same video, which spotted a flash of orange going up the stairs. Inmates wear orange, not all.
Okay, guys. Larry Schiffer says, have you priced steaks lately? Okay, so that's a good critical way of looking at the enormous amount for steaks. Thank you for expressing that. Official, that girl Henny says, lobster tail steaks and crab legs while we can't even afford health care. Great point. Thank you.
Officers. The FBI stating a, quote, flash of orange looks to be going up the stairs. Could possibly be an inmate escorted up to Epstein's tier. Now, the FBI's own video review detected that prison orange uniform of a possible inmate. That's big. This review had the evidence.
Guys, I'm going to be doing my next deep dive on the Epstein files, and this is true. I've already pulled the video, but later in the night, early morning, when they said no one had actually went to Epstein's cell again, you actually can see the person in an orange prison garb, right? As though they're an inmate actually walking up the stairs. You can see that from the video reference point looking down where you actually see the desk of the 2 correctional officers that they said had fallen asleep. We're really going to get into it today for our lunch hour, and we're going to look at some suspicious activity that happened with the correctional officers. But on the deep dive, I'm going to show you how things are not jiving together properly.
Orange that could be an inmate. But we are now learning it was cut, hidden, or accidentally left out of the DOJ report. The new files reveal this never-before-seen set of details about Epstein's area on the night of his death. And we could...
Kaiser says he is pocketing the money. Are you talking about Pete Hegseth? Wow. Thank you for your comment.
Show you the locked tier around Epstein's cell, 10:39 p.m. that night. A blurry orange figure appears. The original FBI log calls it that flash of orange could possibly be an inmate. And note that careful description, because then the DOJ review of the same footage changes it to write, quote, inmates are currently on lockdown. It's possible someone is carrying inmate linen up the stairs. Now, that's a huge difference. It replaces observation, orange, with conjecture. Inmates are on lockdown, so they shouldn't be around. But the rule that inmates are supposed to be on lockdown doesn't resolve whether one wasn't.
See, keep in mind that the feds actually, they wrote a report summarizing the entire night and the full occurrence. So that's the issue, because now they've gone on record after they had this investigated. Now, we imagine when it comes to the Fed, they have some of the best eyes and ears involved in understanding what happened with Epstein. So after that, the video comes out with a minute missing. And also we're starting to see some contradictions in the video. Now it puts the feds in a peculiar situation.
Just like Epstein was supposed to get those 30-minute checks, but didn't, that I told you about. Now, the DOJ's change prevents questions about that orange flash and if the jail made another mistake. And the public report by the DOJ hides this dispute over the orange flash. It states that an officer appears to walk up the stairway. CBS's Daniel Rudnick first documented this in a report. Who entered Epstein's jail tier the night of his death? Newly released video logs appear to contradict official accounts. And independent experts telling CBS the video is more consistent with someone wearing.
So I want to take a moment. I want to stop. We can afford a few seconds here. Put a 1 in the chat if you generally believe the things you hear from the president and his administration. Okay? Put a 2 if you feel like we're not being told the truth, and oftentimes you have to do your own independent research. So 1, if you feel like you're getting the truth, a 2, if you feel like you're being lied to. Let's get to it. Tell us how you feel.
An orange prison uniform than a corrections officer. The fact is the DOJ's own watchdog report minimized the FBI evidence. That is just a fact. Now, people can debate why.
So right there, this is the frame I was talking about. You can actually see the person going up the stairs. So this is the desk in the photo, and that's where the 2 correctional officers were falling asleep, probably counting the cows and counting the sheep while they slept on the duty, right? But someone is going up the stairs early morning, right? And in the report, they said no one actually went up there. And lo and behold, they find Epstein deceased or on his way out, right? Like, what's going on here? We want to know.
Was that a good faith mistake or a malicious cover-up? Even videos suggesting an inmate on the loose does not.
Okay, Honeybee has posted that girl Henny's link right here that I have on the page, guys. So I'm going to star it too. Give her some support. We often do shows together. We cover things together. We're just like ships in the night, covering the same stories in our own unique way, but we do so in peace. Thank you so much, that girl Henny.
Not resolve questions around Epstein's death, but it would be another rule violation, and it would add to the evidence suggesting you need a deeper investigation of potential foul play. Now, that was the only camera angle working, shown here on this map. The DOJ report notes recording failures do predate this Epstein probe. There was a history there. And the only working camera that covers a common area outside the entrance to Epstein's general area is here. There isn't video.
Guys, Starbright says, and Starbright has all those 7s. Thank you, Starbright. Starbright says Epstein is still alive. A lot of people feel like Epstein is still alive. But then there's a lot of people that feel like he's deceased, but he had assistance on his way out, if you know what I mean. In other words, he didn't do it to himself, right? But then there's a strong majority that actually believe that he did take his own life, right? So it would be great to know what each and every one of you guys think about it. If you can make a comment. Okay, we have Eric in the building. Nice to have you here, Eric.
From that better camera that pointed down Epstein's hallway. Now, back in our timeline, moments after Epstein was found dead, the new files for the first time allow us to see the area footage at the moment of that discovery. A figure moving from the desk.
Okay, guys, so there you have it, official. That girl Henny and I will be doing that deep dive into the Epstein files together. So we'll probably shoot for a Monday night, but we'll solidify that and tell you all about it. I guarantee you it's a show you don't want to miss. We'll cover all of the good points and bad points about this case.
In the upper left corner towards Epstein's tier and then returning quickly. We see increasing activity. The video adds to the picture of how jail staff responded. Doesn't look like it was an expected event, some giant conspiracy, at least for the officers on the scene. You can see.
Yes, Edward, the correctional officers were disciplined tremendously. They are no longer correctional officers. So we want to factor that in. We'll get into that too.
It gets chaotic. They're moving around outside Epstein's tier. But the FBI then didn't arrive for 7 hours. And that's a problem because by then guards had removed Epstein's body. The cell was in disarray. The crime scene tainted under Trump DOJ authority. And the feds didn't fingerprint or DNA test materials in the cell, which is
Guys, I regret to inform you that most people feel like they can't trust the president and the administration. I'm shocked that we don't have more of a mixture, but the answer has been tremendously more of the two, meaning no to trusting the president and his administration. Okay, thank you guys for your input in this matter.
basic forensics to check if others were in the cell or touched items. The jail had control of the scene, but mismanaged the evidence. How bad?
That's right. What's good? How convenient. The officers were sleeping. They were just knocked out, right? It's starting to look real. Not starting. It's looking sketchy.
Bad was it? Well, officers found Epstein with a noose around his neck.
Guys, let's get the likes up, share, subscribe. Also, if you could just hit the hearts, just thumb up those hearts or the 100s or what have you. All of that helps us get into the algorithm. Friday, I'll be, and I'm also hesitant to go, but I'll be down in in Washington, D.C. by the White House. I'll be seeing the mayor of Washington, D.C., and I'm on this journey to have access to the White House and to be able to report sometimes live, or not live, but be able to go to the White House and represent the Watching the World crew, right? We're amazing people, and I think we have some beautiful days coming ahead. Please hit the like, share, subscribe, help support us. Thank you.
But by the time they were done tainting the crime scene, the feds were never even able to establish which noose killed Epstein. There were several nooses fashioned from the clothing. Investigators said they did conclude one handmade noose you see here was not the one used. That's odd.
That's right, Gold Digger. A great collaboration. So now you're starting to see how the whole noose theory is falling apart too, right? What does all of this mean? And the fact that I told you guys the official memo about his death is actually dated a day before. Like, why is that the case? It's just like in the case of Nancy Guthrie, when the sheriff actually says that they actually responded to her missing a day earlier than what it actually was. And even though in that case, it seems to have been just a light mistake, we just have to wonder, like, how does these things materialize when people are working in the office and we expect them to perform at a very high level?
Original account says a guard literally ripped the cloth away when they found Epstein hanging, and then CPR. So the new files reveal the underlying evidence from this probe, and the government expected that stuff to stay secret. They never expected that we'd be on the news telling you about it. Like one guard recounting that he didn't recall taking the noose off. I really don't. We can also tell you that after the death, 2 officers were put on leave. Within a week, the medical examiner did state the cause of death was suicide by.
Okay, so here's a good example of how efficient that girl Henny is. She noticed something that I had picked up too. The guards were asleep, but they weren't caught on camera sleeping. Make it make sense. How does that happen, right? Something's not right. Old Keith Sweat song. Actually, I was just at Keith Sweat concert. He says, something just ain't right.
Hanging, mentioning no evidence of defensive wounds that might be part of an attack. The examiner also reviewed footage and thought it was just too blurry to draw conclusions. The new files show they also delayed that ruling on suicide for more review because of Epstein's status.
And guys, I want to tell you that today the committee is actually interviewing Jeffrey Epstein's accountant. So that should probably lead to some valuable information. But I think all of this is going to really squeeze some prominent people that we know in this country. In fact, after all of this information come out, you might start to see people getting locked up, and it might blow your mind.
A forensic pathologist hired by Epstein's brother, Dr. Baden, also looked over the autopsy and had a different conclusion, determining injuries on Epstein's neck were closer to, quote, strangulation than suicide. Now, Baden once served as chief medical examiner in New York. Months later, as we go to the timeline, the DOJ indicted the guards on duty that night for lying about the inmate checks that never happened. That's a big deal. It added pressure, though, for those guards to cooperate in the probe, and the DOJ later dropped those same charges. We are learning the FBI heard from an inmate who said that officers were heard discussing covering up Epstein's death in some manner. That was reported just this week by the Miami Herald's Julie K. Brown. There was heat on the Trump DOJ over what you can now see was a debacle that looked even worse over time. And in the middle of the probe, Trump Attorney General Barr made an unusual announcement that he said he watched the jail footage. He ruled out anyone entering the cell or foul play. This was days after the guards were first indicted. Barr giving his case, but there were so many failures he didn't deny.
I remember when Barr actually came out and gave his testimony for this, but it's looking shaky from Barr. What's happening? And Barr's father had a unique connection with Epstein. All of this we had no clue about, but now we're starting to find it out. As my grandmother would say, it's all coming out in the wash.
Item, including, of course, the video recording. He just said the jail had a, quote, perfect storm of screw-ups. Years later, the DOJ report documents those failures, but avoided any mention of the crucial conflicting evidence I just showed you tonight, the flash of orange, whether a person or even an inmate was on the loose near Epstein's cell area. Now, it can be reasonable to make an investigative finding that it's unlikely anyone still entered Epstein's locked cell that night. Or you could state that the total evidence just doesn't suggest it. But Trump officials who oversaw these problems in 2019 and the Biden-Garland DOJ later issuing the report, okay, they went farther. They basically stretched to try to tamp down the growing public concerns. We've heard about a cover-up being sometimes worse than the original incident. Well, ironically, that kind of strained overreach can feed questions about government secrecy, cover-ups, or even foul play. The CBS investigation noted the jail camera angle means it's just not possible.
Guys, I could tell you one thing. Here at Watching the World, we have some of the sharpest people in the mix, and definitely it's not me. We have people like Stella, who's checking every word you say, making sure we're on top of our game. We have Gold Digger that's really digging in and getting the facts, right? The thing is, when we have people like that, and this is just here at Watching the World, performing at a high level, imagine when they're not giving you the truth and you have to go and dig. I mean, obviously, we have intelligent people that can discern, but a lot of times the feds or whoever, they talk to you in a way like you can't figure out the real truth. It's like lying to your mother. It doesn't really work, right? So it would be better, it would be in the best interest of the government to actually be truthful to the American people, because a lot of people will be okay even if it's bad news, just knowing the real truth, because when you get the real truth, you can make your own decision to how you want to deal with it. But when the people lie to you, they take away that right from you. And sometimes you get blindsided, and all of a sudden now you're dealing with a situation, and that's where people really, really fall apart, right? So it's better for us to get the truth. That's why in Nancy Guthrie's case, we're not getting the truth. And I understand they say, hey, we don't want people impeding on the investigation. But again, when you don't be truthful, now that sends people in the wrong direction and they don't trust you anymore. And once that trust is gone, it's very hard to get it back.
Possible to rule out if someone could have climbed the stairs and entered that tier. And this new law has forced out all these documents. It's made the DOJ finally show its work, and that's driving these fresh questions. Autopsy and 2 administrations did state Epstein took his own life, suicide. But other insiders disagree, several saying they don't think Epstein took his life, including his brother, Ghislaine.
So let's take a moment. Let's do a poll. If you feel like Epstein unalived himself, we use the word unalive because it's more YouTube friendly. And Stella would definitely be on my case if we use those other words. She does a great job at that. But put a 3 in the chat if you think that Epstein unalived himself, or put a 4 in the chat if you think someone else took his life. Let's just get a general pulse of what the people here today, we have roughly 400 people here. Let's see what everybody thinks.
Maxwell and the pathologist I mentioned. And some of those claims can be suspect, as his defenders or even conspirators, but that's their view. And a former Trump attorney who Epstein hired in August, the same month as everything I just showed you, said,
James says, and James is a New Yorker, he's an attorney, he said you can't get to that floor without the keys, so we're already on shaky ground. But so far, everybody feels like Epstein's life was taken. Wow.
I don't think he committed suicide. He was very engaged in fighting the case. He had basically just hired me to kill himself 9 days later. Wouldn't make sense. So let me take this all together tonight. We live in a time of agendas and conjecture and rush narratives. The truth is usually slower and more complex. Epstein's life was a criminal conspiracy and his death became a mystery.
Okay, so now we're going to go back. We're going to do a little quick reset. We have a lot of information to cover. So now, typically, most people, it's safe to say, it's fair to say, most people here in our chat feel like someone took Epstein's life, okay? But now let's take that, we're going to turn that into one, okay? Number one, someone took Epstein's life, or put a 2 in the chat if you feel like Epstein is still alive somewhere. So now we're going to refine this even more. A 1 if you think his life was taken, right? Or put a 2 if you feel like Epstein is still alive and this is all some fancy behind the scenes bullshit. Let's get to it.
First plagued by the Trump DOJ failures, then heightened by government secrecy across 2 administrations. This new transparency and evidence undercuts some of those past claims. It clearly shows the need for a fuller, investigative, independent accounting from Epstein's crimes to his time in custody. And as of this hour, it does not yet provide.
All right, shout out to you, Mr. Smith. He says freedom of speech is being controlled by YouTube. Can't say certain words. You better believe it. Thank you, and thanks for subscribing to the channel. And thank you all for all you do, the like, share, subscriptions, and all that.
Definitive proof for how his life ended.
Okay, so that gets us an idea what's happening here. Now we're going to take a close look at the actual correctional officers. Now you're going to start to see that this case is growing hair, more hair than I have. Let's check it out.
Let's get to Epstein, since this is potentially part of the reason why we're in this war. Nobody really knows, although I think a majority of Americans probably believe that this has something to do with why Trump felt the need to launch this insane war. We have some news.
And by the way, most people feel that Epstein is still alive, at least here reflecting the people here in our chat. So I'll have to process that and get back to you, because it seems that people are really starting to read between the lines and probably under the table. We're not falling for a whole lot of hoopla anymore, but this is something to consider, right?
Very significant developments on 2 fronts. So one directly does involve.
Hey, Larry Schiffer, welcome back. Nice to have you, good friend. Look forward to building with you.
Trump. We've been talking about how some of the interviews with with his most credible accuser, in terms of, in the context of Epstein, how those interviews were not available.
Adrian says, what we see is just for show. I agree with that.
Well, under pressure, they have now been revealed. So put that to the side. We'll talk about that in just a second. The other piece, though, has to do with a potential cover-up of what really happened on the day that Epstein died. Let's put this.
Guys, I want you to really pay attention to what Danny is saying. Danny is actually preaching today. Danny says it's funny how everyone's going after the states. Meanwhile, it was Israel who actually started this war, and the U.S. is backing them. Thank you for keeping us pointed and helping us focus on some of the key facts here. No doubt about it. Thank you very much. We just try to stay with what can be proven. And I think, Danny, you're right on point.
Up on the screen. This is a pretty bombshell reporting here from the Miami Herald and also from the New York Post. The headline here is, and this is, of course, Julie K. Brown, prison guards discussed cover-up of Epstein's death, an inmate tells the FBI. I'll read you from the story. An inmate housed at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York told the FBI he overheard guards talking about covering up Jeffrey Epstein's death on the morning he died. The federal government's online Epstein lab.
So the building that you see here, when I'm covering the court cases down at the federal courthouse, this building, which they used to house the inmates, I broke it down last night, it's next door to the federal building, and this is where all of this happened with Epstein. So one of the higher ups in the court told me, basically after Epstein died, this building went black, hasn't been in use, and no one understands clearly as to why the whole building, the whole jail, so to speak, has been shut down. Because what would happen, you have 3 or 4 major courts in the area, and when the inmates would come over for their trial, they would be housed here. Okay, so it's a very important plot of, I would say, land or property, right? So why is this place shut down? What's happening with it, right? Is it the condition of the building? Well, we know that the MDC is in bad condition, so we need more than that argument to be developed to understand. So now all of the inmates, such as Sean Diddy Combs, who I covered for 9 weeks, Nicolas Maduro, who will be in court on the 26th of this month, Luigi Mangione, all of these individuals are being housed in Brooklyn. So that's even more money of them being able to commute, right? His wife, Nicolas Maduro, his wife is commuting over too. So we have to put all this together because it all tells a story. You can bet your bottom dollar.
Library contains a 5-page handwritten report of an FBI interview with an inmate who awoke the morning of August 10, 2019 to the loud commotion in the special housing unit or SHU where he and Epstein were jailed. Breathe, breathe, he recalled officers shouting about 6:30 a.m. Then he said he heard an officer say, "Dudes, you killed that dude." A female guard replied, "If he is dead, we're going to cover it up and he's going to have an alibi, my officers," the FBI notes. The FBI notes said.
So a guard said you killed that dude? Wow.
The inmate claimed the whole wing overheard the exchange. Later, after learning Epstein had died, he said inmates said, "Miss Noel killed Jeffrey." He identified the female guard as Tova Noel, one of 2 correctional officers who were later charged with falsifying reports. So it appeared from their records they had made their rounds that.
Okay, so James, who's very familiar as an attorney in the area, he says, speaking of this building, it's a holdover location. It went dark and closed. So he's substantiating, he's backing up what I had just reported to you guys. We try to report to you real news, not just nonsense. And thank you for that reiteration from you, James.
That night when they had not. The charges against her and the other officer, Michael Thomas, were later dropped, but both were fired. So that is one of the pieces here. We get another piece from the New York Post, which adds to the story of this one guard, Miss Noel. So
you can see her picture in the photo.
Epstein prison guard Googled him minutes before his body was found and also made mysterious deposits before his quote-unquote suicide. One of Jeffrey Epstein's prison guards, this very same one that the inmate said was involved, she had Googled Epstein minutes before he was found dead. So supposedly no one knew he was dead. And she's there Googling Jeffrey Epstein in prison.
So she was supposed to be doing the rounds allegedly, but instead of doing the rounds to safeguard to make sure he's okay, they're actually sitting there, or at least she, according to the report, is Googling the man. What's happening here?
Also made a mysterious $5,000 cash deposit 10 days before the Predator's jail cell suicide, new Department of Justice documents reveal. She was one of 2 Metro Correctional Center workers accused of falsifying records. She's the one who was supposed to be there watching him. She's allegedly falls asleep and they falsify the records. That was the story. The guards were fired, but criminal charges against both were later dropped. Specifically what she Googled at 5:42 a.m. and then again at 5:52 a.m., 40 minutes before her colleague found Epstein dead in his cell, what she Googled was, quote, latest on Epstein in jail. So she Googled latest on Epstein in jail 40 minutes before anyone found his body, allegedly. And then the other piece is this money that, mysteriously turned up in her account. Apparently, she was shopping for furniture online. Apparently, she was driving a fancy vehicle as well. I'm not sure that that's easy to come by when you're earning the salary of a prison guard. So some pretty significant questions here, Sagar, about, okay, was this investigated? What was determined? Did anyone ever look into where this cash came?
Alan says, I've been in a prison where staff kill people in the UK, so don't be surprised. Okay, thank you for that inside information. Sophie says, like I said, check their bank accounts. A lot in the audience are saying that Jeffrey Epstein's bank accounts are still active, and there are some rumors that his home in the islands on the infamous Jeffrey Epstein Island, someone is still occupying that in association with his estate. What is happening?
Came from, what the hell happened here? Because these are some pretty wild claims being made.
Yeah, the defense is, well, she Googled a bunch of the inmates. I'm like, okay, what about the cash? Also, Google, it's a little weird. And then there was, the cover-up, and then there was all the cameras. And so, look, I mean, body double. Remember that? The body double. And then the press release draft that came out the day, where it was drafted the day before. None of this stuff adds up. The autopsy, and you put it all together. I just think it's so obvious that this is, I think it's so obvious that something much bigger happened here. Well, I don't believe the official story. That's it.
Period. And let me give you just a couple more details here about Ms. Doyle. Apparently, her bank records showed 7 different cash deposits totaling $11,880 in the weeks leading up to and then immediately after Epstein's death. The largest one was that $5,000 deposit. She was driving a $62,000 Land Rover, Range Rover, brand new, and she was not apparently asked about the cash during her DOJ interview. An internal FBI briefing, also released in the files, reveals the agency thought Noel was likely the mysterious orange shape spotted in a blurry surveillance video near Epstein's cell around 10:40 p.m. that night. So, mysterious cash, driving a fancy car, shopping for furniture, Googling Epstein before he's known to be dead, theorized to be that mysterious orange shape that they initially lied about and pretended didn't exist and then said must have been an inmate. And so I don't know. That's
draw your own conclusions.
Draw your own conclusions indeed.
Yes, draw your own conclusions. James says his townhouse was sold for $75 million as reported. Okay. Estrella says the enemy is amongst us. Okay, thank you very much. James says cash from who is easy to track, and it's on record that over $1 billion had been transferred through wires going to and from Epstein. And we know in the case with Sean Diddy Combs, they were able to track every little wire. They could tell every hotel the guy ever stayed at. But when it comes to Epstein, they don't know who's what. They have to know, right? They're just not saying.
Okay, let's get to the Trump aspect of this story. So as we've been covering, the Trump accuser who had called into the FBI originally as an anonymous tip, but they found to be credible enough to have interviewed her 4 times. This was a woman who claimed in the 80s when she was roughly 13 years old.
Now, Sophie's make a good point. As far as the individual in the orange going up the stairs, Sophie's World says an officer dressed up in prison attire. Okay, thank you.
That Trump sexually assaulted her and that this, it was Epstein that, introduced her to Trump and enabled this abuse. And she also alleges that Epstein sexually abused her, as well as one other wealthy man from the Hilton Head, South Carolina area. And we'll get to that in a moment. So under pressure, the Justice Department has now released all of these interviews. We previously had access to only one. Now we have access to all of these interviews. We can put this up on the screen. Justice Department releases missing Epstein documents with Trump allegations. On Thursday, they publicly posted these records. The agency said the files, which include details from FBI interviews with a woman who told authorities she had been sexually assaulted by Trump and Epstein, had not been
Now, I just want to say to you guys, we don't want to try to elude that the president of the United States did something nefarious when the man is innocent and he did not do anything. That would not be fair. Same goes for Bill Clinton, Joe Biden, we like to lead with the facts, right? It's very important, especially when we have a president that's leading the world on the world scene when it comes to war. But we want to know what you guys think, because that gives us, I can tell you with this audience now, I can pretty much gauge how things should go based on our great audience, because we have the same general people. We're growing, but I can get a feel for the crowd. But if you feel like the president of the United States is somehow involved in the Epstein files in a negative way, put a 1 in the chat. But if you feel that the president of the United States knew Epstein, may have been business acquaintance, friends, or whatever, but did not really have any nefarious dealing with Epstein, put a 2. So put a 1 if you think the president was squeaky clean. Put a 2 if you think it was something there that needs to be looked at. Let's see what the audience feel in regards to this, all right? And be honest about it. It's okay.
Previously released because they were incorrectly determined to be duplicates of other records. Oh, oops. We just happened to withhold these ones. Sorry, guys. Made a mistake. Anyway, here they are. Justice Department's posted millions of pages of Epstein-related records online. The woman who was interviewed by the FBI in 2019 accused Trump of sexually assaulting her decades earlier when she was a minor. No evidence has emerged publicly to corroborate that accusation. The White House has, of course, called the allegations against Trump, quote, completely baseless accusations backed by no credible evidence. However, listen, and that is all true. Right. We don't have any confirmation that this claim was actually true, that this is something that really happened. However, there are a few things to note here. Number one, the FBI did consider her credible enough that they interviewed her 4 separate times. OK, that indicates.
OK, so far we have more 2s than 1s. So the general feel is that people feel like the president was tied in to something with Epstein that may have been nefarious. Wow.
That they took the claim seriously. Also, in addition to her reports and interviews with the FBI, one of her friends also actually called.
Brittany, thank you very much. Brittany says, congratulations, Mel, sir, on the 55,000 subscribers. Much love, respect again. Great coverage as always. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate that, Brittany. It's always great to see you, and I can tell you are quite sincere. Batty says, I don't know how you can look at Trump's handling of this and not be suspicious as hell. Well, based on the answers in the comment section right now, everybody is looking at him a little bit weird. Capello says, and if Trump wasn't president, we wouldn't even know who Epstein is. Okay. Capello loves Donald Trump. He's a strong supporter, and he's definitely tells us that every time. Jeff Springer says, afternoon, I'm late today, but it's awfully good to have you here, Jeff. I always look forward to having you here. Portia says, definitely. Thank you.
Called into the FBI to say, hey, this happened to my friend. You know, Trump and Epstein sexually abused my friend. So you have not only her, but you have a friend as well who also separately called in to the FBI's anonymous tip line. Then you also have this.
Okay. Blaze says, why didn't the jail have cameras in the cell area? They did. In fact, earlier in this show, in the video, they showed the cameras right outside of his cell. So there's plenty of cameras.
Let's put this next piece up on the screen. This is from the Post and Courier, which is based in Charleston, South Carolina. And so they dug into some of this timeline because she made accusations that a lot of this abuse, not the Trump abuse actually, but the Epstein and another wealthy man abuse happened in Hilton Head, South Carolina. So they say here, fuzzy memories and hard facts. And
Thank you, Sophie's World. She says, Mel, you have turned into one of my favorite channels. Thank you very much. That means a lot to me. Really do. Roger says, I would say there are a lot of people of power and very worried, with things yet to come out. Yes, they probably can't even sleep at night, right? That's what I would imagine. James says, I would not be surprised, Mel, if Maxwell is pardoned before Trump's term is over. I think it's coming down the pipeline. Thank you, James.
See accusers' claims against Epstein and Trump examined. And what they found using archived government records and news accounts was that the woman did provide verifiable details to agents about her family background and its legal entanglement. She offered the name of an Epstein business associate on Hilton Head Island who became a central figure in the drama with specifics that are reflected in public records. So
Okay, so Gold Digger has some good information for us. She says 2 days before Epstein's death, Epstein met with his lawyer for a last will and testament. Okay, well, that kind of gives us a spark here. Thank you, Gold Digger.
So this is a horrifying situation. Allegedly, her rented to was to Jeffrey Epstein. Separately, she advertised that her daughter, who was 13 at the time, was available as a babysitter. And lo and behold, who, again, allegedly hires her is Jeffrey Epstein, who then proceeds to abuse her, proceeds to have a wealthy friend, business owner in Hilton Head, South Carolina, also abuse her. And then when her mother discovers that Epstein had nude photos of her, Epstein...
So, guys, we're going to get into this deeper for the deep dive on Monday night, but today I wanted to give you a taste of what's coming down the pipeline. But also, we're going to take another quick look here of how New Mexico is actually taking some serious action to reopen the case based on the Epstein
case. Authorities are now searching the ranch in New Mexico once owned by Epstein. On the scene today, here's Pierre Thomas.
3 decades after Jeffrey Epstein allegedly sexually assaulted underage girls at his New Mexico ranch, state investigators are searching the sprawling property, hunting for evidence.
This investigation is a crucial piece of trying to understand what happened at the ranch.
New Mexico authorities reopened their investigation after the release of the Epstein files, which include unsubstantiated allegations of murder and bodies buried on the ranch. The ranch was apparently never searched despite allegations by several women that they were abused by Epstein there when they were minors. Annie Farmer was 16 when she says Epstein assaulted her on the ranch in 1996.
I was sleeping in a small room. I was in my pajamas under the covers, and he just sort of bounded in and said, "Oh, I'd like to cuddle." Of course, he wasn't actually asking, wasn't waiting for me to agree to that.
That summer of '96, Annie's sister Maria reported allegations of Epstein's sex abuse and child pornography to the FBI. But she says her tip was ignored and nothing was done for years. After hearing about the new search,
we keep hearing nothing was done, right? That's the ring we keep hearing.
Family and supporters of Epstein's victims made the journey this week to Zorro Ranch. Among them, the brother of Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre, who died by suicide last year.
Standing here at Zorro Ranch, a place represents such trauma and nightmares for my sister and so many other survivors is harder than I ever imagined.
So we're starting to see that Epstein had these massive mansions with a lot of acres, and everybody's trying to figure out where in the world did he get all of this money from and who was actually backing Epstein. Perhaps some of you guys could give us some insight on who you think was backing Epstein.
While state officials in New Mexico have reopened their investigation, sources tell us that DOJ has not launched any new expanded investigation regarding Epstein. David?
Pierre Thomas with us here tonight. Pierre, thank you.
Okay, very good. So that gives you an idea for Epstein today. Again, you can come back on Monday night if you want to check out this at a deeper level when we do the deep dive. Now we're going to get into Iran for the sake of time.
And a Fox News alert because Iran's new supreme leader issuing his, his first public statement. It was a written message that was read by an Iranian state TV news anchor, Trey Inks.
Now, keep in mind that this man lost his father and he lost his wife, and he's also been injured. So let's see the spirit behind what he has to say. Let's check it out.
Let me hand it over to you while I cough, and you tell us what exactly happened. What did he say?
Yeah, Dana, good morning. We're just getting this in right now. On Iranian state media, a presenter read a new statement from Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, and Reuters is reporting a few highlights from those remarks, saying that the supreme leader said in the statement, "We believe in friendship with neighbors and only target the bases, and we will inevitably continue." That is not true. We know that many Gulf countries have had their residential and civilian infrastructure attacked. Now, Iran's new supreme leader in this statement...
Well, that doesn't sound like peace. You see what he said? We're going to keep this show going, and we're going to keep targeting Americans. Definitely not a great time to travel right now. You could call it fear-mongering or what have you, whatever comes to mind. But we're kind of frame it as more of wisdom and discernment especially trying to safeguard your family and also preserve your own life, right? And even here in the United States, we have these sleeper cells. We're being warned about it. We also considered in this show that Iran is trying to target hitting the American soil to take out probably as much life as possible on the West Coast with California. We have a lot of watchers here that are in California on the West Coast, but also here in New York, we've had already some action. We had some bombs being thrown at the mayor's house, okay, at the mansion. Also down in Washington, D.C., I covered it yesterday. There was someone tinkering around with the Capitol, so I have to be careful when I head to Washington, D.C. tomorrow. There's just so much going on, and we're just trying to figure out how to navigate.
It goes on to say all U.S. bases should immediately be closed in the region, and those bases will be attacked. He also says in the statement, again, that was presented on state media, he does not appear in the statement, that he calls on unity among the people of Iran and participation in Quds Day. Now, Quds is the Arabic word for Jerusalem, and this day normally...
Guys, keep in mind, RT says Iran bought over 500 Tomahawk missiles from 80 billion in weapons that Biden left in the failed Afghanistan withdrawal, which killed 13 service members. So they're pointing fingers that this all stems back to Joe Biden. Okay. Blaze says, who was backing him and his money? Boys, all the people that got laid at his properties. Okay, thank you very much for your comment. Gold Digger says, those type of calls are for attorney-client privilege, not secretly given for personal, unmonitored use. Thank you very much for that, Gold Digger.
It falls on the last Friday of Ramadan. And so if my math is correct here, that would be March 20th of this year, the last Friday of Ramadan, when traditionally we have seen Iranian proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah launch attacks and also large demonstrations in the region. And so this is certainly something to look out for in the days ahead. But again, this is the first statement that we are receiving from Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. He speaks about the attacks on Gulf countries, also says that he will target U.S. bases in the region, and then also talks about the Strait of Hormuz. This is an interesting...
Now, keep in mind, guys, Gold Digger says, yes, you have to use wisdom right now when it pertains to travel. I have a trip coming up to Egypt, and I have to I have to think about that, right? A lot of commitments already made, but what about the people that were in Dubai, had no clue that this was going to jump off, and now they're still stuck trying to figure out. Some people are still trying to get home.
Part here, and again, we are just getting these highlights from Reuters, watching state media in Iran. They're first coming out, of course, in Farsi. And Iran's new supreme leader goes on to say the closure of the Strait of Hormuz should be continued as a tool to, quote, pressure the enemy. And so the rhetoric that we are hearing from Iran's new supreme leader is quite similar to his father's rhetoric. Remember, Iran's former supreme leader was taken out in the opening strikes of Operation Epic Fury when this war began. And in those opening strikes, Mojtaba Khamenei...
So I want to do another test here because we have quite a few people here, almost 300. So let's see. Put a 1 in the chat if you think this is an Israel war and we're just backing them and this is their issue, right? Or put a 2 if you think that the war or this conflict is because Iran was actually a threat to the United States. So 1 for Israel, 2 for the United States. Let's see what everybody thinks from all this information we've been processing.
Khamenei's wife, mother, and 1 son were also killed. Again, the latest remarks, though, that we are getting from the supreme leader via state media, and we are quoting Reuters here, indicate that he will continue ordering the attack.
Okay, guys, Ham says the United States is trying to exaggerate Iran's military power through propaganda to justify starting this unwarranted war. Thank you so much. Solid comment. Thank you.
Attacks on U.S. bases in the region and continue efforts to close the Strait of Hormuz. Bill, Dana?
And Trey, as you pointed out, Iran's new supreme leader said that Iran has, quote, warm relations with Gulf countries. I'm curious, how do you think those Gulf countries are going to react to hearing that, considering Iran is...
So far, we have a good mixture, right? We have a good mixture. Welcome into you, Deborah. Let's see how the tally shapes up.
Owning and missiling them every day.
Yeah, I've been speaking with Gulf leadership and sources over the past 2 weeks, and I would not describe the current relations as warm between these two countries. Not only Qatar, but the UAE, Kuwait, and Bahrain have all come under Iranian ballistic missile and drone fire in recent days. And while the Iranians have attacked U.S. bases in the region, they have also attacked civilian infrastructure and energy infrastructure, including Omani energy infrastructure. We showed you those images earlier this hour of an oil storage facility in Oman.
Guys, New Jersey, and this is my cousin. That's why she's so worried about the Egypt trip. She's been with me throughout my entire life, right? So thank you for that. But we use discernment and wisdom over here for sure.
Burning as a result of an Iranian drone attack. And remember, Oman was the mediator in the negotiations that were taking place earlier this year indirectly between the Americans and the Iranians. And so the current relationships are not good between Gulf countries and the Iranian regime. And despite the fact that some communication has taken place with Iran's foreign minister reaching out to his Gulf counterparts, these attacks against Gulf countries do continue.
Trey, yesterday.
So it's fair to say that the new leader he's there for it. He's ready for the smoke. So I don't understand what's the game plan with the United States. Our fearless leaders they say this is going to be a temporary deal. It's almost like if you get into a fight at the bowling alley, once each side slap each other, how are they going to get to a point where they say, okay, that's enough. I slap you, you slap me, right? Often you have to have someone intervene to stop the fighting. So in this particular case, who can really check the hand of Donald Trump, the president, or the United States? I think the United States is the strongest right now. And I think Donald Trump is leading in such a way that everyone is afraid to even check his hand. We see that in the Democratic Party because a lot of people are afraid of even speaking about Donald Trump because he has been very good at pulling people's skeletons out of the closet. So a lot of people that used to talk about Donald Trump and used to fight against him, like Nancy Pelosi, well, those people are far and few in between. We just don't see it. So with this type of climate, I don't see this going away. I only see it probably escalating to something more.
Even on the 5, we were saying, is there proof of life that we could get that this guy is still alive? There are reports also that he was injured. Do you know anything more about that?
Yeah, I spoke with an Israeli intelligence official in recent days who indicated Mojtaba Khamenei is injured. They downplayed the reports, though, that he was critically injured, saying that he was injured in one of the strikes, the opening strikes of Operation Epic Fury, again, that killed his wife, his father, of course, and one son. As we look forward here.
I mean, they killed a man's father, killed his wife, and injured him. This is going to be some type of smoke he's going to bring to the table.
Though it will be interesting to see if and when we actually see Mojtaba Khamenei. We've not yet seen him. Of course, there have been posters and images circulating in the Iranian capital of Tehran. But this statement today, where he speaks about the ongoing war against the United States and Israel, was made through a presenter on state media.
Trey Yingst, thank you, and stay safe. We'll maybe see you again as the...
Okay, the key words is stay safe. Well, in this case with Israel, Israel is taking a lot of smoke, and Iran has been dropping the hammers on Israel like nobody's business. You could easily find that online when you can find some authentic video, not the AI generated, but authentic video of how they've been raining bombs out of the sky because of this new technology that they have. And also keep in mind that Iran is backed by China and also Russia. And so they're bringing and adding so much to the table. And I know you guys are pretty similar to me. You're probably trying to figure out how does all of this work, because we see the relationship that the president and his way of dealing with Putin from Russia and also from China. But then these individuals are backing our enemy. Like, what does this mean, and what does it mean for the American people when now we're hearing that Iran wants to actually drop a few bombs over here in our little comfortable, cozy neighborhoods? It's not a good thing. So let's take a look at, how this is going to materialize, right? We're going to really focus on this over the next few days, and I'm going to actually be reporting about the things involving this war. But let's get to it.
To bring us out to this live images that we continue to have over in Jerusalem, Israel. And this comes as just a few minutes ago, in fact, the Associated Press reporting that Hezbollah launched some 200 rockets at Israel's north and deeper into the country overnight. That's according to the Israeli military. Many rockets.
Guys, Dolly says it's a lie. Every country know Trump didn't get authority from the U.S., then help his friend. That's why Iran enjoy them. Okay. Thank you very much for your comment. Caprello says, I'll never be afraid a man that wears a bonnet. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your comment. City says, sorry to tell you, but they're bringing nothing to the table. Okay. Sophie says, Trump did all of this without Congress input. Okay. John Robertson says, as long as Trump is there. Okay. Could you elaborate more? Bert says, going through Cuba. You might as well go ahead and count Cuba as a part of the United States because Donald Trump is definitely going to lock them in and take control of the situation, no doubt about it. Capello says people need to go read The Art of the Deal. Okay. Bert says, we don't believe what this administration says. Thank you guys for all the comments.
Were intercepted and no serious injuries were reported. Now, sirens started blaring Wednesday evening across the north and continued almost nonstop for hours, warning of incoming attacks from Lebanon and Iran. The explosions and interceptions overheard were.
Jonathan says the kingdom of God is near. Jonathan, what does that mean? Help us understand what it means in our personal lives. What do you mean by that?
So loud that some people were dashing outside. They spoke to some residents down there on the ground in Israel. And I do want to get some more perspectives from the ground. So joining us next is going to be Alex Trayman. He is the CEO and Jerusalem Bureau Chief at the Jewish News Syndicate. Alex, good morning and thanks for joining.
Good morning, Carl.
So as you saw there, I mean, those strikes do continue on.
Terry says the president does not need permission from Congress. Thank you very much for your comment.
A lot of these proxy groups, Iran as a whole, continuing to launch strikes in Israel. Want to get the overview sense as to what you're seeing on the ground. You are there based in Jerusalem.
Yes, well, Hezbollah seems to have entered the war in a maximum capacity right now, as you mentioned, firing 200 missiles at Israel in the last 24 hours or so. Iran also seemingly able to continue to launch ballistic missile salvos at Israel. There's been 4 launches since midnight already, and Israelis have been going in and out of shelters in what seems to be coordinated attacks now from Iran and Hezbollah into Israel.
I want to bring us out to this. It's a social media.
Guys, if we can get the likes up, if you could hit the like button, share, subscribe, but also hit the hearts or what have you at the far right corner, typically if you're on a vertical cell phone. Thank you.
Post courtesy of the IDF saying about 70 terror targets were struck, including terrorist infrastructure, weapons storage facilities, central headquarters, key terrorists, and an IRGC Air Force headquarters in Beirut. Now, going back to some of these launches that Israel is conducting, those military operations, Alex, I want to ask, what have been the most effective strategies when the IDF has been targeting that infrastructure?
Welcome back to Roadrunner. Roadrunner says we will all need safe rooms soon. That hit really hard. Definitely, that's possible. Roger says they hate us and the Western world. Thank you.
Sure, but also keeping Israeli civilians safe from any counterattacks.
Obviously, Israel wants to hit the launch.
Thank you, Carson.
Which prevent Hezbollah or Iran from being able to fire on Israeli population centers. But what we've seen is that really Hezbollah has rebuilt much of their chain of command. You'll recall that Israel had taken out Hassan Nasrallah, Fuad Shukr, the number 2 of Hezbollah, had taken out about 3,000 members of the mid-level command with that beeper episode, and was hoping that Hezbollah was largely deterred. But as you could see very clearly, they have been rebuilding at a quite rapid pace in order to get ready for what would be the next round of fighting, and that is this round. And the feeling here in Israel that the IDF and Israel need to go all the way, that there cannot be any more filing back of Hezbollah or filing back of Iran, that there needs to be a fundamental change where there's no possibility for Hezbollah to attack Israel in the future.
And so it's interesting because you're talking about this rapidly rebuilding of the terrorist organizations here, even though they are continuing to be struck by Israel, also U.S. forces as well. What or who is credited with that rapid rebuilding, and how are they able to continue to coordinate and launch these attacks?
Well, we see that based on what Israel's been doing inside Lebanon is that they've actually been attacking Iranian and IRGC members and infrastructure inside Lebanon. So Iran has been at the focal point.
Okay, guys, Blaze says Iran is going to start attacking military bases in the United States. Oh, my goodness. Bert says nobody talking about fertilizer that is stuck in the Straits of Hormuz that the farmers need right now. Thank you.
The head of this terror octopus not giving up on their strongest terror proxy, which is Hezbollah, and still diverting as much money and resources as they can to the.
So Israel is taking their share of heat from Iran too. We'll keep our eyes on it. We're going to get down to our last story of our news at noon today. And I often say it's very important to pass this type of information on to your children, because a lot of things they may not understand, but even adults make simple mistakes that cost their lives. I know recently there's a bridge near where I live at, and along the bridge you have the walking sidewalk, but there are certain places as you go along the bridge where there's a gap between the sidewalk and the bridge. And so this young guy recently, he broke down on side the road, just a teenager, and he was so afraid of the tractor trailers and the cars coming through that he climbed over the fence, right over the gate, the fence, trying to get to the sidewalk area, and didn't know there was a gap, and he lost his life. So a lot of things we need to pass on to the next generation. A lot of things we take for granted, thinking that children will just easily pick up on, but we need to keep trying to direct them, and also we need to be cautious ourselves. But let's get to the story. It's quite sad, but it's something that happens, and we're trying to build awareness for this subject matter.
A local mom putting out a warning after her daughter was found dead inside her vehicle. Investigators say it was because of a small carbon monoxide leak in her engine. Fox News' Scott Wolchak joins us live from Royal Oak, where the incident happened. And Scott, this has gotten everyone's attention. What happened out there?
Hey, Rup. Yeah, you know what? It gets a lot of people's attention because it's pretty freaky, to be honest, that something like this could happen, because it could have happened to literally anybody. So it happened here at this parking structure in Royal Oak. This girl was only 18 years old. Her name was Aubrey Morgan, and she
18 years old, right? Lost her life.
She had a huge passion for life.
18-year-old Aubrey Morgan singing with her friend.
She constantly went out of her way for everybody. Forgiveness was huge in her heart.
Aubrey loved field hockey.
From Las Vegas, Nevada, Aubrey Morgan.
She graduated high school last summer.
Give your dad a hug. She had a real big passion for cosmetology, which is when she decided to go to cosmetology school after high school.
That was why Aubrey was headed to Royal Oak January 14th. It was snowy, and her mother, Olivia, was worried she hadn't heard from her.
She had basically not responded. It wasn't like her.
Olivia pinged Aubrey's phone to a parking garage near both Aubrey's school and a restaurant she worked at. She called the manager, who spotted Aubrey in her car. It was running.
She walks up to the window. She says, "Oh, she's sleeping." And I actually said out loud, I said, "Oh, thank God." Like, oh. I said, "Could you wake her up? Obviously, she's tired. She fell asleep after school or something, yada, yada." And she goes, "Okay." And she goes to open the door. She's knocking on the window, and she opens the door. And she goes, "Wait, she's not breathing." And so obviously I start screaming. I'm like, "Wait, what? What do you mean she's not breathing?" And she's like, "I have to call 911," and hung up.
EMS came, but Aubrey was dead on arrival. The initial thought was she had an aneurysm. The investigation revealed otherwise.
They had put her car up on the hoist at the police station, and she had a small crack in her engine manifold.
Aubrey had died from a carbon monoxide leak.
I never knew that you could just be driving your vehicle and have a carbon monoxide leak and not know it, because it's odorless. There's no signs of it. And the signs present is a lot of other things.
That's why Olivia wants to raise awareness to potentially save others and honor her daughter.
I want to make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else, because as a parent, this is your absolute worst nightmare.
Love you.
Very, very sad right there. So what can you do? Well, they do make carbon monoxide detectors that you can put inside your vehicle. You can know the signs: headache, dizziness, feeling tired. But that's what also makes it tricky, because there's lots of things. Even the weather can give you a headache or make you dizzy. So that's where it can be very difficult. But a very tragic story to hear. And I wish that mother the best when it comes to spreading out her message, because it is a very scary thing. For now, reporting live.
All right, so this is something to keep in mind. You definitely want to pass on to your loved ones the importance of trying to understand these situations, especially when it comes to carbon monoxide, especially even in your home, making sure you have the standard carbon monoxide detectors, also smoke detectors and the like, right? Recently, I had a family member that had a electric car. It was a Volkswagen, right? New car, electric. And he parked inside of the garage and he had it all plugged in. Somehow or another, it caught on fire from the outlet and it burned the whole house down. And so this is just a sad situation for us all to kind of deal with here in New York. But very disheartening the way the whole thing happened. But one thing you learn about this situation is you really cannot park an electric vehicle inside the garage. Please do not do it. Took the whole house, and the whole house burned down probably, I'd say 15 minutes. It was up in flames and gone. Freezing outside in the winter. And we've been trying to deal with this situation and help support and help them put back the pieces of so many different pieces, unfortunately. Thank you guys for tuning in today. We had a lot of great people tuning in, a lot of great comments. I see some people are just coming in. Welcome to you as well. Hit the like button, share, and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. We have Uncommon Woman in the building as well. Okay, Dolly says, once America support Israel, they must know they're going to be in a war forever until the Bible prophecy is fulfilled, and they still more countries they're going to attack. This has been going on for some 3,000 or more years if you try to tie it into the Bible. But the real question is the modern day Israel the same Israel that's in the Bible? So that's the question. And so if it is, then we can say that 3,000 year or more is very valid in regards to talking about Israel. But you're right. Most people do understand that these, according to Bible prophecy, these wars would continue if that's your belief system. Grumpy, welcome to you. Grumpy says exhaust is not odorless. She has been smelling it for months and ignored it, probably with some kind of perfumes or car sprays. Thank you very much for that breakdown, Grumpy. Jeff says, as the father of 3 girls, I couldn't imagine the hurt. Oh my, just the thought is terrorizing, right? All right, we have so many great people here. Thank you so much today. New Jerseyan says, so sorry to hear that, Mel. Is everyone all right? Yes, it was 3 people in the house and they all got out, including the little guy, which was around 6 years of age. A really tough moment to be that close and involved with this situation. Is very eye-opening of what electric cars. There's a reason why they say do not put them in your garage, and now I really see why. Deborah says, tell the chat about your song, Mel. All right, Watching the World. That's right. Thank you so much. We're about to play that. Okay, Dolly, let's see. It says, Dolly, if Israel loses the casus belli with Iran, they don't really have a secular angle to persuade Americans from, and their politicians here will lose support. Okay, thank you for your comment. We have a conversation going about Israel. Okay, Deborah says, I was too late running errands. Okay, but nice to have you here. Thank you very much. And I think that's it for today. We have Mumsy says, is not the modern day Israel that the Bible talk about. Okay, so the modern day Israel is not the same Israel as ancient Israel. Is that what you're saying? Dolly says the MP plans is on their soldiers' uniform emblem. Okay. All right. So that's it, folks. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in to Watching the World. We'll see you guys back tonight. We have a show at 8 p.m. with Mama Flips. Her show is always quite amazing as she talks about a lot of different things from her own perspective. So we look forward to that. And we'll see you guys back tonight, Eastern Standard Time at 8 p.m. And until then, be well and stay happy. Stay happy. Thank you very much.
Different voices, but the same song. Living a world where we all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the thing remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might. Harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.